morning, everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today's Thursday, so you already know we're doing a little bit of a preview for the week. We're going to talk important news from the week. We're going to talk injuries that you need to monitor over the weekend. We're going to give you my top starts and sits by positions, as well as some flex plays. And we're going to go game by game, kind of talking about my rough expectations. We're just going to be talking games, right? We're making our picks, having some fun, doing some cool stuff, talking football. Let's go ahead and do it. Take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And thank you so much, everyone, for the birthday wishes. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for remembering. Thank you all very much. Good morning to you all for watching my show. Thank you so much. We're excited to get some football going today. Turning 26. So, hey, if any of you have any information on how to get health insurance, hit me up. I need to get health insurance now, and I have no idea who, what, where, when, or why. I need health insurance. So, give me some tips on that. It's not like insurance is a scam or anything, and I'm super excited to have to pay for that in our society. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Let's get into the actual football today. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for the birthday wishes. It's football time. Let's start with the news. We've got a few news stories that I want to go ahead and talk about. We'll start with Russell Wilson taking over the reins as the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He will be taking on the Jets this weekend. So we'll have some more conversation on that later in the show when we get to the start sits portion, a little spoiler alert. I just want to go ahead and we'll kind of keep it short. Just because Russell Wilson is taking over this week does not mean he's taking over for the rest of the season. There's a lot of things coming into play here that I think make sense for the Steelers to at least try Russell Wilson. I think that they at least have to try Russell Wilson. They spent some resources to bring him in. And then also on the inverse, bringing in Justin Fields, their draft pick goes from a 5th to a 4th round pick if he plays 9 games. Now, that is inconsequential, really. I mean, who really cares if it's a 4th round pick if your quarterback's playing as well as Justin Fields has been? But they still want to, kind of try to unlock the passing game and see what they have in Russell Wilson, just in case. Because if they're 4-2 with Justin Fields, if Russell Wilson's even better, maybe they'll head into, the playoffs or something like that, So they're definitely trying their best, seeing what they have in Russ, but I'm pretty sure he's going to have a short leash. I think that he'll probably have this week and then maybe another before they reevaluate. But don't think that this is literally taking over Justin Fields, especially for the rest of the season. I think that it's going to be some time, where they kind of evaluate Russell Wilson, see what he has, see if he can maybe unlock the passing game a little bit, and then kind of go from there going forward. I think that they just, we're kind of committed to Russell Wilson being the starter heading into the season. They haven't been able to see what that looks like because of the calf injury. Now that he's healthy, they at least want to see what it looks like. But, my take is still that Russell Wilson is basically washed at this point. I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure he can handle an offense. And I'm sure, especially in this system, it'll be okay. But just what we've seen from him, especially in Denver, just is not – it's not good. It's not really at this point, one of the top starting quarterbacks in the league, or even really a top 32, really at this point, kind of what he's putting together. Kind of the same sack issue that Justin Fields has, except a lot less mobility at his age. So I'm not expecting the greatest things for this. I think it'll end up being fine, a touchdown, an interception, 200 yards exactly, nothing too crazy. But I will say, might as well stash Roman Wilson. This is a player we are very excited about after the Senior Bowl, a player we are very excited about, heading into this whole offseason, right? He has really good athleticism, very good route runner, good hands, has the kind of clutch factor, had a ton of touchdowns at Michigan. So he's awesome. He is. Roman Wilson is awesome. And if Russell Wilson is to unlock the passing game, we could see that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 role that he operates in, kind of take a step forward. So if you want a little bit of a deeper bench stash, you could go with Roman Wilson. That's really the only person that maybe gets an upgrade with this, because Justin Fields was just locking on to Pickens and Pat Fryermuth, right? But with Russ, we've got 2 R. Wilsons now. Maybe they'll find each other. Who knows? So might as well take a chance there. But again, this isn't Russell Wilson taking over for the whole season. This is just the Steelers seeing what they have and trying to mitigate the resources that they used on their quarterbacks. Some other news that happened were some trades. And I mean, we've discussed these throughout the week. But still, we'll go ahead and go back over them just because we haven't had a proper kind of show to go about this. First off, Devontae Adams traded to the Jets. you guys know I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not, at least in terms of like an NFL lens. Like when you're talking about the Jets' current situation, obviously they're trying very, very hard to win a Super Bowl, and bringing in Davante Adams is going to be a big part of that. But they're just not, to me, they're not a Super Bowl team, even with Davante Adams. Like there's just a lot of holes on this roster, especially the offensive line. And I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. It feels like one of those situations where there's so much good, we'll put quotes around it, that it actually ends up being terrible. Like, do you remember that like super Detroit Tigers team that, I know this is baseball, but they had like a bunch of all-stars one year and they ended up being like the worst team in the league. Like I don't know. I'm not expecting a lot of good things from Davante Adams on the Jets. I think it'll be fine. I think that, he'll have a nice consistency, and that is what I'll like. But I don't really think that, maybe once or twice we'll see this, but I don't really think that Davante Adams is going to be the Green Bay Packers Davante Adams, or even the Raiders Davante Adams for that matter. I do think that Garrett Wilson will take some targets. I do think that Adam Lazard is still going to get some targets. I think Davante Adams will obviously still get a lot of targets too, but the 20 targeters, I don't think that's really happening. Even a 15 plus, I don't really think that's happening. I think we'll see it spread around pretty evenly. I think Davante Adams, helps the offense be better, right? More efficient, higher value touches going to all these places, but definitely still less volume to everyone. And the person this benefits the most is, of course, Aaron Rodgers. I just think, they're just wasting a lot of resources trying to get this Super Bowl, and when it inevitably crashes and burns, it's going to be so hard for the Jets to crawl out of this hole when Aaron Rodgers retires, when Davante Adams is gone, when Garrett Wilson needs a new contract, when Breece Hall needs a new contract. I mean, like, all of the cracks are forming here in New York. Sauce Gardner, when he needs to do a contract, and they're just sending all these resources for now that they're not really going to have the resources for later. So I would definitely be panicking if I'm a Jets fan. And like I said, I'm not too excited. Like, a lot of people think that this is going to be Aaron Rodgers throwing to Davante Adams every single play like it was in Green Bay. I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, I think he'll obviously still get some targets, right? A lot, probably 10, right? But I don't know about the 20 target, 15 plus target ceiling that a lot of people are expecting here, at least, consistently. Now, I think that there will be certain weeks where Garrett Wilson's a big part of the game plan, certain weeks where Davante Adams is a big part of the game plan. But for the most part, I think we're going to just start to kind of see just almost a consistent floor from these players, and really, really just hoping that they get a touchdown here or there. So anyway, moving on to Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper traded to the Buffalo Bills. We talked about this in yesterday's show a bit more in depth. We talked about we're buying Amari Cooper. We are buying Amari Cooper. Maybe not for this week. In fact, I thought about it. We'll talk about it some more in the show. It might be worth waiting 1 week to buy Amari Cooper now. And, now that I'm kind of thinking about it a little bit, because they do have a tough matchup this week. But still, Amari Cooper going to the Buffalo Bills, I think, is really incredible. Like, honestly, like we talked about yesterday, the Buffalo Bills tried this no alpha offense, have Josh Allen spread it around and finding the open receiver and running the ball, right? And it was working to a certain degree, but not well enough, right? They were not operating in the way that they should have, at least in terms of their ceiling performance that they could have as the Buffalo Bills. So they bring in Amari Cooper to, go back to that force feeding a wide receiver one thing. And I think it's going to be awesome. I think we're going to get like basically Stephon Diggs type usage in Buffalo with Amari Cooper. So I definitely want him on my team. I think he's going to have an awesome second half of the season. I think he's going to be a really, really big part of this Buffalo Bills offense. So I'm actually very excited about this trade. I think it helps everyone out, even down to Dalton Kincaid. I don't think this hurts him that much. I mean, like, obviously he's going to get a few less targets, but again, kind of with the Jets thing, right? Like, it'll be higher value touches as well from a lot of different places. So Amari Cooper to the Bills, I think, is an awesome move for Buffalo. They didn't have to give up a crazy amount like the Jets did for Davante Adams. And I think he fits into this offense perfectly. So Amari Cooper to the Bills, good news. And lastly, Cam Akers to the Vikings, definitely a little bit less consequential than the other moves, but still kind of a big one, especially with the Aaron Jones injury. We could see Cam Akers starting this week, or at least kind of splitting the load fairly evenly with Ty Chandler. I think that's awesome. Cam Akers, we saw he looked pretty good in the preseason. He was decent in the few weeks that Joe Mixon was out. So, yeah. I mean, like, it's fine. You want to pick him up, I guess. You want to take a waiver wire ad on Cam Akers. You don't want to go trading for him or anything like that. You don't want to spend a ton of fab. But if he's still sitting there, go press that add button, see what happens. Because Ty Chandler, we've seen it before. He's not like as good and athletic as he is. He can't handle a full workload. And honestly, he loses a lot of his explosiveness when he does. So I think that Cam Akers will help take away some of those, just less exciting opportunities from Ty Chandler and maybe have some explosiveness in this offense. So he's someone I want to add, but it is kind of an inconsequential one. So yeah, those are all the trades. It's kind of the big news stories. We have some other news stories, but they pertain to injuries. So let's go ahead and get into the injuries preview of this show. Every week here on Thursday, we talk about the players at practice, the practice reports. And we like to do it early. We like to talk about it early because most people don't start talking about this until, tomorrow or even Saturday. And I just think that's a bit too late. It's important to go ahead and start monitoring these as early as possible. Go ahead and start making the moves before all the, the reports come out that this player is expected to miss time. So we're getting in early. Let's go ahead and start. Jonathan Brooks, his practice window has been opened. He's not expected to return this week, but just know that the Jonathan Brooks return is imminent. Drake May had a full practice yesterday, went to the media portion and everything, and then had to get an MRI on his knee. The Patriots said that they have no serious concern. They have not given us the results of the MRI or anything, but it seems to be fine. Again, he was at the interview, had a full practice. The Patriots said they don't have any concerns. So it's probably fine. Definitely a little worrisome. You don't ever want to hear about anyone having an MRI after practice, but it seems it was fine with Drake May, but definitely need to go ahead and monitor that. And then speaking of MRIs, breaking story yesterday, Rashid Shaheed went to Los Angeles to get an MRI for a meniscus issue. Shout out producer Dustin. It looks like his surgery has been set for today. They don't know what type of surgery yet. If it's a trim, it's that 4 to 6 week timeline. If it's a full repair, he will be out for the season. This is very similar to the JJ McCarthy thing. I'm assuming with how bad the Saints are, FTS, right? FTS. He's probably going to be done for the year. I mean, like with Spencer Rattler at quarterback the next few weeks, the issues with Derek Carr, the Taysom Hill injury, like things are kind of falling apart in New Orleans. I don't see what, just trimming Rashid Shaheed's meniscus does, given, he's a little undersized, really needs a full repair to be able to stay healthy for the rest of his career. So I think I'm assuming my opinion would be he gets the full repair, but definitely keep your eye on that today. So yeah, those are kind of the big injury stories. Let's go ahead and go team by team. Look at the practice reports, see what players are practicing, not practicing, all that fun stuff. We'll start. Marvin Harrison Jr. still listed as questionable due to his concussion. Just something to monitor over the week. That looks to be it on Arizona. To the Falcons. Nothing too crazy. To Baltimore. Still nothing really on Keaton Mitchell. It looks like he's right on schedule, but not close enough yet, says John Harbaugh. So just kind of keep your eye on the Keaton Mitchell return. It looks like Rasheen Ali is off of the practice report, though, which is pretty good news. Buffalo. Mac Hollins limited, so probably fine. He plays through these things. And then James Cook. James Cook picked up a limited practice with his toe injury in Wednesday's walkthrough. Just keep your eyes on that throughout the week. We know with toe injuries, they can tend to linger. So just kind of keep your eye on that. With him picking up a limited practice, that's probably good news, right? That generally, if you pick up a limited practice, especially on a Wednesday, you're good to go for the week, but definitely something to monitor. As well as Dalton Kincaid, who looks like picked up a collarbone injury, also limited in Wednesday's walkthrough. That one's a little scarier, especially at the tight end position. I don't think you'd want to play with a hurt collarbone, but sometimes NFL players do that sort of thing. So definitely keep your eye on both of those. Those are two big ones, James Cook, Dalton Kincaid. But they're just limited practices, so probably fine. Again, Jonathan Brooks was taken off the practice window was open, which is good. Deontay Johnson did not practice on Wednesday due to an ankle injury. I think this has kind of been the case for the last few weeks. If I'm remembering correctly, they just kind of give him this veteran rest on Wednesday. So probably a non-issue as it pertains to Deontay Johnson, but at least keep your eye on it through the next few days. Next, we have, no one on the Bears we really care about. On the Bengals, also no one we really care about. On the Browns, looks like Nick Chubb will be returning. They have not given a set amount of snaps or touches yet. They haven't figured that out in Cleveland, it looks like, per Kevin Stefanski. But definitely look at it. It looks like Nick Chubb will be playing, especially since Jerome Ford isn't in line or, picked up that hamstring injury. Not practicing on Wednesday. Jerome Ford probably not going to play this week. It looks like we'll get, Nick Chubb season without Jerome Ford. crazy news. Crazy news. And you guys already know my take on Nick Chubb. Everyone, not everyone, but not many people believe in Nick Chubb like I do. I think he's just a different animal. I don't care if he's up there in age at this point. I don't care if this was a really serious injury. I think Nick Chubb is going to come back fine. Maybe not 100% Nick Chubb, but still, even like 80% Nick Chubb is better than like half the running backs in the league. So I would try to acquire Nick Chubb if I could, especially with the Jerome Ford injury. Deontay Foreman also listed as questionable. Nick Chubb may get a lot more opportunity than we think. And even if he doesn't, I still think he's going to have some explosiveness and, get worked into it the next few weeks until he eventually gets a Nick Chubb workload and Nick Chubb production. Get Nick Chubb while you can, I would say. Moving on to the Cowboys, they're on a bye, so it doesn't really matter. Josh Reynolds placed on IR this week due to his fractured finger, so we might get some more Troy Franklin action. In Detroit, no one really on offense, but as we know, Hutch, injured reserve, very sad. Next, we have the Packers. Christian Watson, limited, so probably fine. Dontavian Wicks, shoulder, limited, probably fine. Jaden Reed, ankle, limited, probably fine, but definitely keep your eye on it. Tucker Kraft, also limited with a groin injury. So lots of questionable players in Green Bay, but all of them picking up limited practices, so things are probably fine. But at least keep your eye on it throughout the week. Marshawn Lloyd, however, we talked about it earlier this week on our waiver wire show. He is eligible to return this week. However, it looks like he will not be. The Athletic has reported that he is not quite ready to return to practice with his ankle injury. So still going to be sitting on IR, it looks like, for Marshawn Lloyd. Moving on to the Texans. Nothing too crazy here. Nothing too crazy. Indianapolis Colts, Trey Sermon did not practice Wednesday. Josh Downs did not practice Wednesday. Michael Pittman did not practice Wednesday. And Jonathan Taylor did not practice Wednesday. As it pertains to Jonathan Taylor, he's missed, I believe, 2 weeks now. He'll probably miss one more and then come back next week. Generally, if you avoid the IR, you miss about 3 weeks. Come back that fourth. Or else, why wouldn't they have just put you on IR if they expected you to miss 4 weeks? Michael Pittman, with this injury, this is the same one that was bothering him last week. Not practicing this week. Probably still going to play. But definitely something to keep your eye on here, as, Michael Pittman was expected to go on IR while Anthony Richardson was expected to start. So it's possible if Anthony Richardson starts that that Michael Pittman sits. So definitely monitor that and the Anthony Richardson status. Same with Josh Downs, toe injury, not practicing. Definitely something to monitor, as I believe this toe injury is something new. I haven't seen that one before. So we don't know if he'll end up playing. Like we know with Michael Pittman, this was the same injury that didn't sideline him last week, so they're just kind of giving him a veteran rest. But Josh Downs, this toe injury is new to me. Not practicing Wednesday, definitely something to monitor over the coming days. As well as Trey Sermon, knee injury. Looks like you're going to have to get Tyler Goodson. Shout out Ryan in the chat. Looks like Tyler Goodson looks to be a pickup here in Indy. Jaguars. Travis Etienne actually picked up a limited practice with his hamstring injury. They did, list him as week to week, but it seems that he might be fine. Definitely something to monitor. I wouldn't expect him to play, but if he's going to pick up limited practices, things will probably be fine. Generally, that's what we see. I don't know. That's awkward. They report him as week to week, but seeing him show up at practice is interesting. So monitor the hamstring injury for Travis Etienne. Evan Ingram, hamstring, limited. Again, this is the injury that's been sidelining him all season. He finally made his return last week, so probably fine. Gabe Davis picked up a knee injury, but was also limited at practice, so probably fine, but definitely something to monitor. Nothing here on the Chiefs. Zamir White returned to practice in Las Vegas. So he might be returning this week. But Jacoby Myers did not practice. Looks like Jacoby Myers will be out one more week based on this practice report. But it looks like Zamir White may be returning, which is good news, man, because Alexander Mattison and Amir Abdullah was not fun to watch. On the Chargers, 2 players are not practicing, Quentin Johnston and Hayden Hurst. Monitor those guys. Quentin Johnston has an ankle injury. Hayden Hurst has a groin injury. And if I remember correctly, didn't Will Dissly get hurt? No, Will Dissly was taken off the practice report, so he's probably fine now. But, Hayden Hurst not practicing. If he's out, you might get a DFS play out of Will Dissly. And then Quentin Johnston, ankle injury. if he's out, I mean, just hopefully some more usage for Lad McConkey. DJ Chark, also, his practice window has been opened. So DJ Chark may be returning soon. We've talked about him on the waiver wire episode for the past couple weeks. DJ Chark, you know, he's just a producer. He just gets things done. And he's a type of wide receiver that the Chargers are lacking, this field stretcher, kind of explosive play wide receiver. I think he could be unlocked with Justin Herbert's arm. So I am stashing him in my deeper leagues. DJ Chark. Rams. Cooper Kupp practiced on limited capacity on Wednesday with his ankle injury. He is trending towards being able to play and return this week. So Cooper Kupp side, looking like he's going to be good to go this week, which is awesome news for people who have had him on their IR. Jordan Whittington also looks to be good to go. He picked up a limited practice with his shoulder injury. Again, this was from a couple weeks ago. They had the bye week. He should be fine as well. Jordan Whittington, good to go. And I'm excited to see Jordan Whittington with Cooper Kupp. Devon Achane with his concussion after the bye, practiced in full. Raheem Mostert taken off the injury report. Looks like we are not getting Jalen Wright action, unfortunately. But definitely something to watch. You know, if they're both out there, how much opportunity does Jalen Wright get? That could be huge. Vikings, Aaron Jones is not practicing with his hamstring injury. Again, they traded for Cam Akers for a reason. It'll be him and Ty Chandler going forward. So get those guys while Aaron Jones is out. And TJ Hawkinson picked up a limited practice on Wednesday. So it looks like TJ Hawkinson is potentially returning this week. So just keep your eye on it. Maybe send out some feeler offers for TJ Hawkinson. See if you could get him for a reasonable price. Ramondre Stevenson was sidelined at practice on Wednesday. So just keep your eye on that. Keep holding on to Antonio Gibson with his foot injury. The New Orleans Saints, we already know this. This is for tonight's game. Lots of different things. Derek Carr not expected to play. Rashid Shaheed not playing. Taysom Hill not playing. Chris Olave not playing. It's looking like Bud Means, Mason Tipton, Jawan Johnson becomes an interesting player this week as well. But as we know, A, the Broncos defense has looked pretty good. But also B, we don't believe in Spencer Rattler here, unfortunately. Good story, whatever, good athlete, but he's not an NFL quarterback. He's just not. No weapons either. Not really going to make it any easier on him. But, maybe look for the Alvin Kamara game or something like that. Who knows? But then also keep your eye on Kendre Miller. Looks like he was taken off the practice report. So hopefully off the injury report. Hopefully Kendre Miller actually gets some action. Next, we have the Giants. Wando Robinson limited, probably fine. Malik Neighbors is returning this week. He got a limited practice on Wednesday, so going to be good to go. Devin Singletary practice limited with his groin injury, probably returning this week as well. And Darius Slayton picked up a limited practice. Monitor him throughout the weekend. New York Jets, Tyler Conklin limited with a hip injury, but probably fine. And Devontae Adams with his hamstring injury is expected to play. Ooh, Louis, send me that Sal Vitri video. I want to see that. Anyway, Devontae Adams expected to play with his hamstring, quote unquote. Moving to the Eagles. Dallas Goedert did not practice. I'm going to go ahead and say it, guys. Don't pick up Grant Calcaterra. Don't do it. Seriously, don't do it. How many times do we have to do this, right? Where we think that picking up Grant Calcaterra is going to result in anything. Don't do it. Let someone else spend their fab on it. It's probably too late for me to say this, but still, Grant Calcaterra is not going to get you anything at all. We do this every year. It's not going to happen. Grant Calcaterra is not that good. And the Eagles don't pass the ball enough, at least outside of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Saquon. Like, hold on. We know better. Let Grant Calcaterra be someone else's problem. Moving on to the Steelers. Najee Harris did not practice with a rib injury, so definitely monitor that. However, Najee Harris tends to play through injury, so it will probably be fine, but definitely a concern as ribs are not good. And not practicing. Not good, but probably fine given it's Najee Harris, but definitely something worth monitoring. On to the 49ers. Ricky Pearsall. He practiced in full on Wednesday, so we may actually get some Ricky Pearsall action here soon, as Juwan Jennings did not practice on Wednesday with a hip injury. Looks like Juwan Jennings may not be there this week. If he's out and Ricky Pearsall plays, could be fun. Deebo Samuel limited, so probably fine with his wrist injury. That's just Deebo for you. And then big surprise, Jordan Mason picked up a limited practice with his shoulder injury. Pretty crazy stuff. Definitely monitor that over the weekend. I don't expect Jordan Mason to play. But with a limited practice on Wednesday, that is always good news. So monitor that, right? I mean, we may not even get Isaac Rendo this week, which is sad. That's kind of what we want to see. But we also, we don't want Jordan Mason to be hurt. So, hey, definitely monitor that. See what happens there. Limited practice for Jordan Mason. Keep your eyes on it. Seattle Seahawks. Laviska Shenault didn't practice with a back injury. That's my wake and take wide receiver for our kick return yardage. Hopefully he returns. Definitely something to monitor for your kick return leagues. Buccaneers. Nothing too fancy yet. It looks like no practice reports. The Saints. Will Levis limited with a shoulder. Probably fine, but they're going to bench him at some point. And then Tyjae Spears did not practice with his hamstring injury. Probably not going to play this week. Probably going to be Tony Pollard season. And then something I'll have to keep my eye on is for later in the show, but it looks like Algerius Sneed is not practicing either. And then lastly, on to the Commanders. Brian Robinson Jr. returned to practice, so he should be good to go this week, hopefully. So those are kind of the injury rundowns. Keep your eye on those throughout the weekend. And yeah, that should do it. Now, cool. Let's go ahead and move on now to our starts and sits. But before we get into the starts and sits, why don't we take a look at the DFS Dominator?
DFS getting harder every year, but we're here to make it easier with the DFS Dominator because I know a lot of optimizers keep coming out. Oh, our optimizer. What about this optimizer? But that optimizer. Well, we have a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Dario, Billy, the award-winning projections at PlayerProfiler.com, and builds the best lineups for cash games that have both upside and stability, because that's what you want. It's a couple clicks, boom, boom, boom. You get the best possible lineup for your cash games. But for tournaments, traditional optimizers don't work. That's why we have a Lineup Genius, which takes you through the process of building lineups the way they should be built. Which quarterbacks you want to be overweight on, then building stacks, then setting runbacks, then optimizing, and generating up to 150 lineups that you can easily import into DraftKings, into FanDuel. That's the DFS Dominator. It's only $45 a year. Not a week. A year. Just go to Player Profiler, click on the DFS Dominator from the menu, and you won't be sorry.
Get that DFS Dominator. It's awesome stuff. It really is awesome stuff. You can use it for more than just DFS as well. It has an underdog pick generator. And also it just has projections for every single player. Every single player. There's projections for Grant Calcaterra. Okay. So it's an awesome, awesome tool. If you just kind of want to see what our data team is expecting from players, it's not only a baseline projection, but also an upside projection if you like the game script and stuff like that. I love it. That's what I use when I do my start or sit live stream on Instagram on Sunday mornings. I always just go to the DFS Dominator if I have any questions and just go by the projected points on the players that I've asked, because it's awesome. It really is. Made some awesome lineups with that tool. Won some good money on DraftKings with it. Always, this is my suggestion to you guys. Always enter the free contests on DraftKings. Why not? Go to the DFS Dominator, make a lineup, enter it into the free contest, see what happens. It's free money. Do it. It's fun. It's really fun. It's fun. Cool. Now, we are here to the starts and sits portion of the show. I've got a start and a sit by position, as well as 3 flex plays for you guys. We will start at the quarterback position with Andy Dalton. We're starting Andy Dalton. We're doing it. We are starting Andy Dalton this weekend. They are playing the Commanders. The Commanders so far, they're an average pass defense. They've allowed the 7th most pass attempts, and they've given up 12 passing touchdowns already. So averaging 2 touchdowns a game, which is pretty damn good for Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has been out there slinging it so far this season, averaging around 33 to 34 pass attempts a game. He has a 37, a 40, a 28, and a 38. He has multiple 2+ touchdown games already. The only thing recently is he has been turning the ball over, which is always a concern. But he's throwing the ball at a very high rate. The Washington Commanders are absolutely crushing it and probably going to absolutely dismantle this Carolina Panthers defense, leading Andy Dalton to have to be a gunslinger in this game, spreading it around. I think we'll see his first 20-point game since week 3 against the Raiders. I think Andy Dalton goes out there and slings it this week. I'm going to go ahead and call 3 touchdowns, 300 yards from Andy Dalton, and we'll see how many interceptions he gets. Again, guys, I don't believe in Andy Dalton long-term for this. I don't think this is a Joe Flacco situation at all. He's Andy Dalton, right? Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco. One of them was elite at one point. One of them, has a whole mediocre moniker, the Andy Dalton line after them because they're so mediocre. But still, this is a good matchup for him. So I like it. We're going to be starting Andy Dalton this week. And we will be, sorry, Dustin, sitting Russell Wilson, as the Steelers are going to lose to the Jets. It is written in stone. The Steelers will lose to the Jets. And unfortunately for Russell Wilson, he makes his first start of the season against basically the best pass defense in the league so far, right? They only, just in general, they are the 7th ranked defense in points allowed and 2nd ranked defense in yards allowed. And specifically against the pass, they are 3rd in pass attempts allowed, 2nd in yards allowed, 2nd in passing touchdowns allowed. They've only allowed 4 passing touchdowns through the first 6 weeks of the season. Starting Russell Wilson against this defense was not a good decision if they really wanted to give a test to him. I am so shocked, really, honestly. I think that Russell Wilson is in for a tough game. I really do. I mean, George Pickens, his head's out of the game. It's just going to be Pat Freiermuth, really. And it's already a tough defense. So I think it's going to be very tough sledding for Russell Wilson. If you've been waiting, you've been rostering Russell Wilson, you thought he would start this season, don't start him. Keep him on your bench. I would start a few wide receivers and running backs over Russell Wilson this week. I don't see much happening in this one. Moving to the running back position. Oops, I used the wrong picture for another one. Anyway, we are starting Tony Pollard. We are starting Tony Pollard this week. This is one of the easiest decisions of the week. Tony Pollard against the Buffalo Bills without Tyjae Spears. I don't think it gets much better than this. In fact, I would be throwing Tony Pollard into every DFS lineup as well. This is someone that I think scores 30 points this week. I think the Tennessee Titans offense has started to kind of run through Tony Pollard as Will Levis has been really, really bad. And as they're playing catch up to the Buffalo Bills, Tony Pollard will see upwards of 5 to 6 receptions in this game. I think they're going to heavily lean upon him in this one, especially playing from behind. The Buffalo Bills defense is a little bit better against the pass than they are the run. And I just think that Tony Pollard is going to be utilized, especially without Tyjae Spears. I could see near 30 touches in this game for Tony Pollard. So hopefully he stays fresh and healthy throughout the game, but we're going to call at least a touchdown. We're going to call 100 yards, and we're going to call 5 receptions. Tony Pollard, running back start of the week. Good matchup for him. Love the game script potential as well, and the fact that his backfield mate is likely out. He should get a ton of opportunity. At running back, again, I put the wrong picture because my conversation is going to this player, but we're sitting David Montgomery because I'm calling the Jahmyr Gibbs game. So that's why Jahmyr Gibbs is the photo. I was thinking of Jahmyr Gibbs when I was making the overlays because against the Vikings, I don't want to start David Montgomery. We are sitting David Montgomery. So I might as well take this picture away because that is definitely confusing. But we are sitting David Montgomery against the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are the number 1 rush defense. They have only allowed 336 rush yards and only 1 rushing touchdown through the first 6 weeks of the season. They've been very, very good. They're 3rd in points allowed as well. This Brian Flores defense has been incredible. And David Montgomery has also been incredible. He's the RB8 so far in points per game, averaging 18 fantasy points per game, and has scored at least 1 touchdown in every single game so far this season. It ends here. David Montgomery does not score a rushing touchdown against the Minnesota Vikings, and Jahmyr Gibbs is heavily utilized in this one. I think this will be not necessarily a shootout, but a 20s, a consistent, one team has 24, one has 21, maybe 28 to 24. Both teams in the 20s. Ball is going to be moving, a good competitive football game. And in those games, that's where we see Jahmyr Gibbs shine. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a 5+ targeter. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a decent bit of carries. He's going to be explosive. And we're just calling the Jahmyr Gibbs game, especially since it's a very tough matchup against the run. I think that we're having a floor game from David Montgomery. And generally when that happens, Jahmyr Gibbs has a great game. So there's another start for you, although you're already starting Jahmyr Gibbs. But maybe that's a DFS play for you, Tony Pollard, Jahmyr Gibbs against the Vikings. But we're sitting David Montgomery. We're going to go ahead and call it. David Montgomery has his first game without a touchdown against the Minnesota Vikings. Going to the wide receiver position, we will be starting Jackson Smith and Jigba against the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have been very, very good against the perimeter wide receiver one, so I think this could be a lower game for DK Metcalf. But they have been getting eaten alive by the slot. Rashee Rice had an incredible game against the Falcons. Chris Godwin was pretty good. Deontay Johnson was pretty good. Chris Olave and his usage in the slot was pretty good as well. JSN also being utilized very, very, very well in Seattle. Geno is leading the NFL in pass attempts. JSN is top 10 in both targets and receptions so far this year. He has multiple 9+ target games already. He had that 16 targeter in week 2 against the Patriots. This is a really good matchup for JSN in what should be a shootout. The Seahawks and Falcons games are always, always, always good. So much fun to watch. The playoff matchups, the every 4-year matchup too, or I guess every 2 years. It's good. They're a good one. These are always fun games. And the Falcons have been getting kind of eaten alive by the slot wide receiver. Feeling a big game from JSN this week. Again, he was one of our buys of the week on the Market Watch episode. Get him before it's too late and fire him up. And this might be a cop-out, but we're sitting Amari Cooper. We're sitting Amari Cooper against the Titans. The Titans have been incredible against the pass. And that is a big part of, Algerius Sneed, who is not practicing. So this may not matter. But still, even if Sneed doesn't play, I don't think I would be starting Amari Cooper in his first game on the Buffalo Bills. Tough defense against the Titans. And then also, I think that it's going to take a couple weeks at least for him to get acclimated. I think that they'll kind of ease him in this week. But yeah, the Tennessee Titans, they have allowed the least amount of pass yards through 6 weeks. They've only allowed 5 passing touchdowns. And they have allowed the least amount of yards throughout the season as well. The Tennessee Titans defense has been shockingly good. And I just think that this will be a tough matchup for Amari Cooper if he even does play. And I just don't think that, I just don't think that he's going to be utilized a ton or anything like that. But I do still recommend buying him, trying to get in on him. If you want to, you can wait until after this week to try to get him just in case. But yeah, Amari Cooper. Cool. Moving on to the tight end position. This one is no analysis. Just a little silly, funny moment. Tyler Conklin. Against the Steelers. Just because. Wouldn't it be the funniest thing? Just the funniest thing. They get Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson's out here. They've got them all. Defense locked in on these wide receivers, and then boom, Tyler Conklin game. I don't know. I don't know. It just feels right to me. This is total gut feel, but it would just be the absolute funniest thing if we get a good Tyler Conklin game with everything going on in New York. Like, it just almost seems inevitable that with all the excitement around Devontae Adams and how this offense will look with his arrival, Tyler Conklin becomes the guy, right? Like, it just sounds right. It'd be silly. But that's where I'm kind of at in this situation. It's always hard to find the tight end start of the week, right? So we're just going with a silly analysis here. Tyler Conklin, kind of being a little bit of a ghost. Defense not focused on him with all the new weapons in New York. Tyler Conklin sneaks through, scores a touchdown, maybe like 4 or 5 receptions. Conk. Let's get him in your lineup. And we'll be sitting Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft, we will not be playing this week. The Texans are the best in the league against tight ends. If you go over to Pro Football Reference, you can sort by, performance against positions. And if you look at the Houston Texans, they have only allowed 129 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns so far to the tight end position through the first 6 weeks. that is less than some teams that have had some bye weeks, right? That's less than the Eagles, Lions, and Dolphins have allowed so far, and they have a whole less game than the Texans. They are awesome against the tight end position. And also, we saw last week that with the return of Christian Watson, that Tucker Kraft was utilized a little bit less. I think that this kind of continues, especially since it's a tough matchup. We will be sitting Tucker Kraft against the Texans. And now it's time for the flex plays. Just real quick, these always kind of fly by. We've got 3 flex plays for you. Actually, I made 4 for you. 4 flex plays for you this week. Darnell Mooney against the Seahawks. Again, this should be a little bit of a shootout. Also, the Seahawks have been very, very good against wide receiver 1 so far this season, regardless of if Tariq Woolen plays or not. It'll just be Devon Witherspoon. So Drake London should have a tough outing, leaving the door open for Darnell Mooney to have another good game. I want to flex Darnell Mooney this week against the Seahawks. Tank Bigsby against the Patriots. Again, no Travis Etienne more than likely. So if Travis Etienne is out, Tank Bigsby should get a lot of opportunity. And the Patriots defense has just been getting gashed by running back so far this season. Even Dameon Pierce just had a good game against him. So Tank Bigsby should be a good flex play this week against the Patriots. Jalen McMillan. Going to go with a little bit of a deep one. Jalen McMillan versus the Ravens. He made his first game back last week, only had 1 target. But if you go back to week 1, he scored a touchdown in his debut. Sterling Shepard has been getting utilized a lot so far this season. Trey Palmer was utilized when Jalen McMillan was out before Trey Palmer picked up his concussion and he scored a touchdown. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the Buccaneers wide receiver 3 has been utilized a decent bit in this offense. And in a potential shootout comeback game against the Baltimore Ravens, I could see Jalen McMillan sneaking in for a touchdown this week. Going to be flexing the McMillan. And lastly, Kamani Vidal against the Cardinals. This is, again, for a little bit of a deeper league as J.K. Dobbins is out there. But still, I do believe in Kamani Vidal. I think he'll get more touches than he did last week. I think they were just kind of getting him acclimated since he'd been a healthy scratch all season. Now that he's fresh, now that he scored that touchdown, I think he's going to get at least like 10 touches this week against a Cardinals defense that's been very, very hit or miss. Look for Kamani Vidal to have a decent enough game to where you could flex him this week against the Cardinals. And that should do it. Those are our start, sits, and flex plays. Now it's time to go to the games. It's time to play the game. Going over to our Yahoo Pick'em as custom here on the Wake of Tape. We're going to go game by game. Yeah, how many likes can we get? Go ahead and hit that like button while I'm pulling that up. I'm going to share my screen. Going to Yahoo right now. And again, we're just making picks here. We're just making picks and maybe talking some expectations, but this is just the picks part of the show. So if you hate this, you can leave, right? But hey, we like making picks. It's fun. It's fun. Here we go. Thursday Night Football, Denver heading to New Orleans. Favored by 2.5, and we're just going to give it to them. This New Orleans Saints team just absolutely ravaged by injuries right now. Bo Nix playing pretty well. The Broncos in general playing pretty well. We're going to give it to them. Honestly, don't even know if it's going to be that close. Again, I don't really believe in Spencer Rattler that much, especially without all his weapons. Should be very, very tough sledding for the Saints, especially since the Broncos defense has looked pretty good. I'm going to give it to them. Next one, we have the Jaguars hosting the Patriots, technically in London, so not really a home game. Favored by 5.5, no way. In fact, I think the Patriots win this game. I think we have the Drake May coming out party. Drake May looks awesome, goes crazy against the Jaguars defense, and wins the game in London. Falcons hosting the Seahawks, favored by 3. We'll give it to them. Shootout, right? We've talked about it. We're starting Darnell Mooney. We're starting JSN. Should be a little bit of a shootout game. I like a lot of the players in this game. Not high expectations really for DK Metcalf or Drake London. I think it'll be the ancillary pieces, but should be a very fun one. Love the Seahawks-Falcons games. They're always good. Bills-Titans. Bills favored by 9 at home. I mean, yeah, right? I mean, what are the Titans going to do? What are the Titans even going to do? Give it to the Bills there, even with that huge of a spread. I mean, the Titans are just looking awful. Just absolutely poo-poo. So just not going to be a good game for the Titans. I do like Tony Pollard in this one, especially if you consider garbage time. But yeah, the Bills should be able to run away with this one. Bengals, Browns. Bengals favored by 6.5 in Cleveland. I think that the Cleveland Browns will cover that 6.5. I think it'll end up being a pretty close game. But the Bengals still win it. Still going to give it to the Bengals, but that 6.5 point spread is pretty huge. pretty huge. It could happen, right? But I don't know if I want to put my pick against that. That's a tough spread to pick against, especially for the home dog. So we'll say the Cleveland Browns cover that 6.5, even with Deshaun Watson playing as bad as he is. The Cleveland Browns defense has still been pretty damn good. So I think, what do we call it? A 23-17, right? Like, who would say no? And that's, 6, right? So that's kind of what I'm expecting here. I think Jamar Chase has a good game, but like no touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? Like 96 yards off of like 7 receptions, no touchdowns. The big thing to watch, of course, in this game is going to be Nick Chubb. If he returns, how good does he look? How much opportunity does he get? Yada, yada, yada. And then also the Chase Brown-Zach Moss split. That's something that's kind of been evolving over the last few weeks. So I'm curious how that continues to trend. Next, we have the Packers hosting the Texans in Green Bay, favored by 2.5. I'm going to say the Texans. I'm going to go with an upset here. I think the Texans go in and beat the Packers. I know the Packers are playing very well. And I know the Texans aren't really playing that well, but something about this game. I'm going with the Texans here, feeling it. Even without Nico Collins, I think CJ Stroud and Jordan Love have an awesome shootout in this one. Should be a very, very fun game. But going with the Texans in the away team upset here. Colts hosting the Dolphins at home, favored by 3.5. I'm going to give it to the Colts to win, but we'll say the Dolphins cover. And I know the Dolphins have been awful. But no, we're going with the Colts. We're going with the Colts here. Even if it's Anthony Richardson, even if it's Joe Flacco, whoever it is, I think they can win by more than 3.5. Just the Dolphins have not been good. And I don't think Tua's returning this week yet either. So I even with a healthy Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill, I think they can maybe keep it, get some touchdowns. But I think the Colts should be able to dismantle that defense and keep things going pretty well. Giving it to the Colts. Vikings hosting the Lions, favored by 3.5, but we're still going to go with Detroit. Should be a fun one, right? I mean, this is a tough defense, the Vikings. And Jared Goff is coming off an insane game. So can he keep it going? Who knows? Especially without Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be tough for the Lions, create turnovers, get the short field, all that fun stuff. But still, I think the Lions can get it done. It's an awesome offense. There's so many different weapons. Like I said, I think the Vikings could stop David Montgomery in this one. But can they stop J-Mo? Absolutely not. Right? Can they stop Amon-Ra? Probably not. So I think the Lions will still be able to find some ways. Again, I'm calling the Jahmyr Gibbs game in this one. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has an awesome game against the Vikings. I think the Lions get it done in this one. Moving on, the Eagles heading to New York, favored by 3, and they do more than that. Saquon Barkley revenge game. 200 yards, 2 touchdowns for Saquon Barkley. Who says no? I know I don't. This is going to be a huge game for Saquon Barkley. And you want to know how I know that? Because last week I played against one of my best friends that had Saquon Barkley on his fantasy team. And I know since he played me that Saquon Barkley had the floor game. And now that he's not playing me, Saquon Barkley's going to the moon. Saquon Barkley against the Giants, absolute ceiling game, total smash. The Eagles run away with this one. I think that this will be a total massacre almost. I know the Giants have started to look better, but I'm feeling in this one just a total dismantling by the Eagles. Rams hosting the Raiders, favored by 6.5. 6.5, again, that's a big spread. I think the Raiders can close that gap. I think they can, especially since the Rams defense is not that good. I know the Rams will probably be getting Cooper Kupp back. I just don't think that is really going to be enough. Just don't think that'll be enough. So I think the Raiders can cover. I do think the Rams win the game. But the 6.5 point spread, I think the Raiders will cover. Look for Cooper Kupp, though. I think Cooper Kupp, if he does play, should still be a hugely featured part of this offense. What I'll be looking out for is Jordan Whittington's usage for sure. I want to see how Jordan Whittington gets used with Cooper Kupp's return. I still think he's going to be a big part of the offense as well. And that's why, again, we recommended picking him up so far ago. But yeah, Commanders hosting the Panthers, favored by 7.5. And we'll give it to them. The Panthers are just bad. But like I said, I do think Andy Dalton should be able to sling it in this one. I just think the Commanders are going to be able to run wild against this Panthers team, especially since they lost last week. They want to get back on track. Again, this might be another one where it's just a total dismantling, giving it to the Commanders. 49ers hosting the Chiefs, favored by 1.5, but we're going to give it to the Chiefs. Chiefs, I think, stay undefeated in this one. Just don't think the 49ers have the tools right now to beat the Chiefs, even at home. It's just tough. The Chiefs are just so good at football. even without Rashee Rice. They're just so good at football. They win this game. They do. Give it to the Chiefs here. Definitely keep monitoring the Jordan Mason situation. If he doesn't play, look for Isaac Guerrero to be fine. But the Chiefs are just good on defense, right? I mean, like even against the run, even against the pass, this is just such a good football team. Such a good football team. Jets hosting the Steelers, favored by 1.5. Or sorry, not hosting, heading to Pittsburgh, but still favored by 1.5. And yeah, we'll give it to them. Again, I am not expecting big things from Russell Wilson. This is a very tough matchup. The weapons aren't, fired up right now at all. George Pickens kind of in a slump right now. Jets getting rejuvenated now with Devontae Adams. I think they should easily have this one. Ravens heading to Tampa, favored by 3.5. I think Tampa can cover that and maybe win. I think that this will come down to a field goal. I know the Ravens are playing well, but I mean, so are the Buccaneers, and this is a primetime game. Should remain close. I think it'll definitely be a fun one. Definitely will be a fun one. The Ravens should probably win, but 3.5 makes me lean Tampa. 3.5 makes me lean Tampa. I think that it'll come down to a field goal. Should be a very fun game. Like I said, I'm starting Jalen McMillan in my flex, right? Like that was a flex play we named. I think that the Buccaneers should be able to keep it close. I think a lot of people are going to get involved. It should be a very, 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 very fun game. What'll be interesting to watch is Derrick Henry. Tampa is very good against the run. So it could be cool to see maybe maybe not cool to see. We love Derrick Henry, right? But could be interesting to see a Baltimore Ravens offense without Derrick Henry, as he's been running wild the last couple of weeks. It'd be fun to see what they look like in a potential floor game for Derrick Henry. So it should be a cool one. Lastly, the Chargers heading to Arizona, somehow favored by 3. We're going to give it to the Cardinals. The Cardinals should win this one. I know they're not playing great right now. I don't know what's going on in Arizona. I'll be honest with you. But still, the Chargers defense, I don't think is good enough to stop what this Cardinals offense is putting together. And yeah, they may not have Marvin Harrison, but Trey McBride should be able to keep it going just fine. Michael Wilson, James Conner, Trey Benson, Kyler in general. I think that they could get it done in this game. And yeah. So those are our picks. Check them out in all their glory. Boom. Let me save those. Cool, guys. Just real quick now, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the chat, see what questions we have. I won't answer all of them, but we'll get to some of them. All right. Thank you all again so much for tuning in. John Paul, thank you for tuning in from the UK. Stashing Jamari Thrash. Yes, and I picked up Cedric Tillman in the Trade Gods League, and that's a 14-teamer, really deep roster. So Cedric Tillman is available. Jamari Thrash is available in a lot of leagues. I wouldn't mind stashing them. I don't believe in Elijah Moore. I don't really believe in this Browns offense, but if Jameis Winston does go in, we could see an upgrade for these wide receivers. The Jamari Thrash was interesting at the Senior Bowl. He was not bad. He made a couple good catches. He had a drop issue, but a lot of players do, changing that ball size. He was a pretty good route runner, good at Louisville. Not a bad stash, especially for our deeper leagues. Would you trade Travis Etienne and Brandon Ayuk for T. Higgins? I do not think so. I think I would hold on to Ayuk and Etienne. I think that Ayuk's going to turn it around. I do. Let's see. Would you trade for Braylon Allen? No. His value is too high right now. This is true. Amari Cooper could take pressure off Kincaid and Coleman. That's why I think that Kincaid maybe gets helped a little bit, but not enough. I still think that Amari Cooper will end up being the alpha here. Let's see. Moving on. Yes, definitely pick up Tyler Goodson. Does Downs get downgraded with Anthony Richardson playing? Yes. However, I still think he's fine. Definitely not like the PPR god that he is with Joe Flacco, but I think he's still like 8 to 10 point floor with Anthony Richardson. Again, they have a good connection together too. Anthony Richardson and Josh Downs were throwing passes together last year in the hotel parking lot before rookie OTAs. And we saw, I think he had 5 targets his first game back with Anthony Richardson. So he still gets targets. He still gets utilized. Definitely not really worth starting unless you're desperate though. But yes, downgraded for sure. Would you trade Higgins, Devontae Smith, and Demario Douglas for Jameson Williams, Chuba Hubbard, and I don't know who this Johnson is. I think so, though. I think so. I don't know who. I don't know. Higgins. let's go with the Higgins side. Let's go with the Higgins side. I love JMO, but I think that's Deontay Johnson, and I don't think that's enough. Downs or Juju in PPR? Let's go Juju. I think that Juju should be good. I think that he's going to be fine going forward. Would you give Ricky Pearsall on 26 first for A.J. Brown? Oh, my God, yes. If you can get A.J. Brown for that price, oh, my gosh, do that. Holy crap, that is an awesome deal. Do we love Njoku? Yes. Does Trey Benson get more touches with Connor banged up? Hopefully. Hopefully. Would you get Brandon Ayuk and Javonte Williams for Devon Achane? Yes, I think so. I think I would do that, and then I would maybe try to flip Devon Achane if you could, but I like that value for you. Which two would you start? Cup, Jordan Mason, BTJ. Looks like you'll be able to have that decision made for you, but Cup and BTJ for me. Louis was able to pick up TJ Hawkinson, so if he's available in your league, definitely do it. Yes, you should drop Ray McLeod for Kamani Vidal. Drake May or Anthony Richardson? Let's go Drake May. Start Zay Flowers over DK. Maybe in full PPR, yes. Trey Benson or Garendo for PPR? If it's just on your bench, I think Trey Benson. And yeah, that should do it. How did my picks go last week? I already closed it. I don't think great. I'm awful at picking against the spread. I really am. I'm not going to lie. I got 9 out of 14. That's not bad. Hey, 9 out of 14 last week. Let's go. Hey, not bad at all. Not bad at all. Also, before I leave, there will be a tweet going out later today, but hey, why not? Why not? We've got time here. Only been live 56 minutes. I don't know if you've seen yet, but this is why you stick around. We have added a new metric to Player Profiler. Pretty cool stuff going on. It's called the Explosive Play Rating. EPX is what we're calling it. Basically, it quantifies how explosive a player is. So if you go over to Player Profiler, it's now on any player page. You can just scroll down, and it's this right here. If it is showing it, I don't even know if it's showing it. But yeah. So this is Jameson Williams' explosive play rating. He is the third most explosive receiver and has the second most explosive plays amongst any wide receiver so far this season. Just pretty cool. Just a pretty cool little tool quantifying how explosive a player is. This is now available on every single player page. So go check that out, the EPX metric on Player Profiler. Slotty wants to know if they should drop Justice Hill for Goodson or Vidal. Maybe Vidal. The only problem is Justice Hill is actually kind of a flex play here or there. But Vidal definitely has higher end of season upside. I think that I really do firmly believe Kamani Vidal will be the bell cow for the Chargers by end of year. So I do like throwing him on the bench, but I would almost try to drop someone else. But if you're not starting Justice Hill and you don't ever plan to, then yeah, you can drop him. But he's a decent flex play here or there. Cool. But yeah, that's the EPX. Those are your questions. And that is the show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thanks again for all the birthday wishes. My wish for you guys is to have an absolutely kick-ass day. Kick today's ass. Have an awesome Thursday, guys. Happy October 17th. Thanks again for tuning in. Oh, tomorrow I will not be hosting. Tomorrow, Theo Greminger and Matt Kelly, the Podfather, will be hosting in my stead. So go ahead and check out tomorrow's episode. Make sure you hit today's like button. Make sure you subscribe. And make sure you give Matt and Theo some support tomorrow. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a terrific Thursday and a wonderful rest of your week. Peace!
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.